Greetings, punks, goths, metalheads, Herberts, Herbetters, Martians and subterranean folk. How you all doing? My name's John and this is the Health Anarchist channel. Well, today I'm going to talk about what it was like in goth clubs in the 1980s, because I was lucky enough to catch the end of the 1980s. I first started going out clubbing in 1988 and I was 16 at the time, which is a bit naughty, but a lot of people did it back then. So first thing to point out is I'm from Manchester and that's where I first started going out clubbing, and there wasn't a specific goth only nightclub, but there were certain places that played a lot of goth and that's where the goths were drawn. So these alternative clubs as such, they weren't massive money makers like the mainstream music clubs, and they were often in quite run-down areas of the city, in old dilapidated buildings. The one I'm going to talk about today was called the Banshee, and that was in an old dilapidated building. So a lot of nightclubs, and this one included, they usually opened about 9 o'clock at night. So you'd go in, usually you'd have a little queue up, maybe 6 or 8 people in a queue, and you'd go in and there'd be a little kiosk where you paid to go in. Now, it wasn't much at all back then, and they were trying to draw people in, so it was really cheap. I think it was like £1 or £2 at a peak price. I think it was like half price before 10 o'clock to get people in. And you pay at this little kiosk, and they had a cloakroom as such where you could put your coats and jackets, and you get like a little raffle ticket and they'd have an identical one on your coat put away. I never bothered with that, but some people did. So I never got ID'd for my age. I was quite a tall teenager, but I do remember going in once and we had some people that really did look their age at 16, and I can remember the door staff commenting like, they're getting younger and younger. So I'll just describe the type of people that used to get in this club, the Banshee, or alternative club. So you used to get a mixture. Upstairs it was mainly rock music and American rock, so you got a lot of people into rock music and American rock. Then downstairs it was goth, sort of alternative stroke indie and punk, so you get a mixture of all types of people. The biggest crowds were probably the rock crowd, and then you had the student crowd in as well, who were sort of broadly alternative rather than to a specific genre. So the alternative students would usually, they'd wear stuff that was a bit different than the mainstream. Or you might get like the art students in, they'd come in a pair of orange flares that they'd made from a pair of orange curtains. So you get a mixture of people. Then you get your punk rockers, you get quite a few punks in because they play a bit of punk as well, and you get quite a few goths in. I mean, in the clubs in town, that was the place where I saw the most goths. So there was 2 floors. The basement was like the goth stroke punk rooms, and up top at the top was like rock and American rock. So up there they were playing obviously rock and American rock, glam rock. Downstairs they'd play like indie stuff, goth and a little bit of punk. And some of the stuff I remember being played is obviously, I remember Sisters being played, The Cure, Birthday Party, Virgin Prunes, what were they called? Southern Death Cult and The Cult. So punk stuff, Dead Kennedys, The Pistols occasionally. So it was quite a big mixture, and I'll have missed loads off, but I'm just trying to give you a broad taste of what they were playing. Now the decor in there, it was like red and black beams, as in mock Tudor style, and the red walls behind that, and it used to get very sweaty at the bottom, very hot, and the walls were like sweating and dripping from the ceiling. It was that sweaty. So on top of that, you got people smoking cigarettes back then, and you've got smoke machines, so it was very atmospheric, but not great for people with conditions like asthma, I guess. thinking back, I think I did see people occasionally with those little blue inhalers who probably had asthma. So there was a few different bars in the place where you could go and get a drink, and it was just standard club or pub drinks. You know, you get all your spirits, then you get your lagers. Bitter was still a thing back then, and I think a lot of goths went for cider and black, which was like cider with a bit of blackcurrant in. You got this like blood red drink, and you get snakebite and black as well, which is a mixture of cider and lager, and a splash of blackcurrant in it as well to colour it and give it a bit of flavour. So the main thing that stood out to me back then, when I think about it, was the way people were dressed. Now, that was very different to how goths were dressed these days in general, especially when you think about Whitby Goth Fest, which is great for all the colourful costumes and stuff, but back then it was a bit different. The first thing that I remember was the Sisters of Mercy playing, and there's like smoke machines on the dance floor. It was only a small dance floor, and there was probably about 10 goths on there dancing. And I remember there's mainly females dancing to that one early on, and when I think about my first impressions of female goths, it was a lot of fabric. I'm talking about big, long, flowing dresses in black, and things that were probably handmade themselves, homemade, or it was a mixture of stuff that was bought from charity shops or thrift shops, and that it was DIY, but there was a lot of flowing black fabric, lots of it, and I need to really emphasize that. Some of them were big bunchy dresses. I don't really know a lot about dresses, but it was a lot of fabric compared to nowadays, and there was lots of long black flowing hair on the females and the males, but sometimes you had the sides shaved, and some of the males and females actually wore hats. There was top hats being worn. Some wore hats like this. You got a few, and that was the main thing of females. And obviously for males and females, you got the very white makeup. Back then there was lots of like white face paint makeup, obviously with black lipstick and all the cool eye shadow and stuff, which was probably inspired from punk, which was where goth come from. And yeah, they were my memories. And obviously on the dance floor you could smell scents, the alternative scents like patchouli, clove I remember being a scent back then, and also sweeter essential oils like peach and strawberry. I remember those. So the gothic males back then, it was quite toned down really. It was like black jeans, skinny black jeans, pointed boots, I think they're called pikes, and lots of band t-shirts of the men like Sisters or The Cure or The Mission, and you get like black denim jackets, long hair or maybe shaved at the sides in like a wide mohawk. These are just the ones that stood out. Not everyone who liked goth music like dressed that way, but a lot of them did. And you get the same sort of makeup with the men, maybe just eyeliner, maybe with the full white face makeup, and sometimes you get like wearing bits of army surplus like military jackets and stuff amongst the men, or headgear like I've said, like what I've got on, but minus the goggles. You'd also get some wearing more sort of fetishy PVC stuff and like leather stuff, bondage type stuff, which is a bit like a nod towards the punk past of goth. And footwear, there was lots and lots of DM boots. They were the main ones. And also you've got like your Chelsea boots, your pointed Chelsea boots, the ones that have like elastic on the side, if you know which ones I mean. And on the, when I said before that you had people wearing black leather jackets, you get like band logos on them as well, like The Mission, The Cure, you know, Sisters, Alien, Sex Fiend. So yeah, I'd say the men were more sort of band, sort of merch orientated. So facial piercings are quite common now, but back then was mainly like punks and goths who had them, like nose piercings, multiple ear piercings, but they were the main sort of piercings back then. And when I said the goth women back then, it was mainly lots and lots of fabric, black fabric. These were often accentuated with little accessories like little pendants. It might be the Eye of Horus or something like that, or little alternative gothic inspired jewellery pieces. And similar with the men, or you might have like a studded belt. So there's little different accessories that people would wear just to give their clothes that they were wearing a little bit of interest. So you might think, how was the atmosphere in there with all these different types of people, with like your rockers, your punks, your goths, your alternative indie people, your students? Well, the atmosphere was brilliant. Everyone got on. We were all into our different things, but we were all sort of freaks and outsiders from mainstream society, and that bound us together, and it's a really friendly atmosphere in there. And it was like our little special sanctuary where we were safe from the outside world, because believe me, back in the 80s it was dangerous. You'd get attacked for being different, for having different coloured hair, for having piercings. You get people trying to beat you up. I hate fighting, but I had to learn how to fight to defend myself, because after a couple of times you get sick of it and you think, right, I'm not putting up with this anymore. And that's what happened. But in that club, it was really nice because you didn't have to deal with that kind of rubbish. We're all sort of freaks united together, and it was nice. It was a sort of club, you can just go outside, if you was getting some fresh air because it was very hot, or if you was having a cigarette outside. You could just talk to anyone, whether they were rockers, whether they were punks or goths, and we'd get on. And if we had like normies walking past us making comments like weirdos or freaks, we'd all club together, whether we were punks, goths or rockers. We'd sort of stand together and face them off and tell them to go away in less polite terms. So all in all, I'd say back in the 1980s, what was classed as goth fashion was a bit more subtle in general. It was more homemade DIY stuff. People made their own stuff. It was a bit more creative than ready-made, clothes that you can buy. And for men, it was sort of a little bit more subtle and more sort of band-orientated merch wear. Like I said, the t-shirts, a leather or denim jacket, maybe some badges. So yeah, things were a little bit different back then, but it's good to know your roots. It's good to know where your roots go back to, which is, the 80s and the beginning of goth. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did enjoy it, please don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe. And until the next video, don't forget, be different, stay weird and stay free. Bye.